unfiltered discussions, unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Hello and welcome. Going to be a great show tonight. In less than a minute, my favorite artist who I just discovered. Someone who has captured the globe by storm. More on that in a moment. Here's some of what you'll hear tonight. We'll cover the tech stories of the day, including the hilarious Disney worker, ex-Disney worker, who hacked into theme park restaurant menus and changed them hilariously. There's an update on that. Also, Amazon's launching its first batch of internet satellites to compete with SpaceX Starlink. We'll cover those tech stories and more in about 10 minutes' time. Then, new research says bereaved people, those that have lost loved ones, dream of them and imagine them way more often than we thought. We'll dig into that later in the hour. All right, I wasn't kidding about this first interview. It's going to be great, so let's jump in.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
I am here with a legend, an iconoclast, a free thinker, a once-in-a-generation artist, and a personal hero of mine. She's a 20-year-old Canadian pop star and Instagram model whose recent appearance on American Idol went a little something like this. Here she is.
This song, it's a tearjerker for sure. Karens, shut the up. Vegans, shut the up. Babies, shut the up. Everyone needs to shut the up. Laundry, shut the up. War, shut the up. Dinosaurs, shut the up. Everyone needs to shut the up. Traffic, shut the up. People, shut the up. Groceries, shut the up. Everyone needs to shut the up. That's it.
Her name is Sophie Powers. She's the genius behind that performance, and I don't know what to say. Sophie, I'm so glad you're on the show right now.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Can we just give a little background on you as an artist entering American Idol?
Yeah, first, I would love to talk about the fact that you called me an Instagram model because that is a new one for me and I will take it.
Look, my producer told me you were an Instagram model. You're a Instagram model.
No, I'll take it. Thank you. That's as a new term for me. I am a singer though. That is a term I'm used to. And, I appreciate the intro. I guess American Idol was a crazy experience and that clip definitely went viral. So
when I saw it, I'm like, you are a deeply creative person. Like it not only is it funny, is it silly, but like it's really, really creative. And I admired it. I'm so glad you're on the show because I wanted to talk to you. What were you hoping to accomplish when you entered American Idol?
I just wanted to bring recognition to my actual music and actual art. So it was kind of the best course forward for both of us, me and the show, to increase their ratings and increase my visibility. And I couldn't win the competition anyways, so it kind of worked.
In some sense, you did win. If you enter knowing you're not going to win, but you do something that gets a lot of publicity and people love, to me, that's winning, right?
Yeah.
You won in your own way.
I feels like I did. I haven't thought about it that way, but you're right. I should think about it that way.
So tell me about STFU, or more affectionately, Shut the Up, your song I just played. What were you hoping to accomplish with this? Like chaos, applause, people hating on it? What were you hoping with this song?
I wasn't hoping for anything. I just wanted to put it out there and honestly do it for myself as a side quest because not a lot of people can say they've been on American Idol. Yeah, I'm glad the response was, so great.
Tell me about the song. Tell me about the creative journey that led to writing it.
There really was no journey, to be honest with you. I had the song in my head, brought it to my producer and said, I want to make this. We were very burnt out from working on my album at the time. And it was more just exercise that we both decided to do to free our brains from, making actual serious, strenuous music for hours on end. And then I posted it online and it went pretty viral.
On the clip, I just played the audio, but you're wearing a Band-Aid on your nose, which is kind of iconic. Tell me about it. Was it your way of saying, don't worry, this is going to be emotionally painful for everyone. I'm wearing the Band-Aid. It's fine. What was the impetus behind the Band-Aid?
No, I actually wore that Band-Aid for my entire last EP as something I could do so people would recognize me, you know? It was more of a branding choice that I made rather than a, thoughtful choice.
You describe your appearance as a side quest, a random side quest. I see great value in side quests. I think they're what life is really about. It's not the destination. It's not the main quest, but it's like the fun stuff you do along the way.
I mean, it definitely was a journey. So a little more than a side quest, but I'm just thankful for the opportunity. I keep downplaying it, but it was really an amazing experience. And you're right, I think side quests are what make our journey. Our journey is just a bunch of side quests all combined. It's not its own innate thing.
Any other side quests that you've accepted or gone on lately?
Yeah, I mean, I've produced and shot 4 music videos this week. And another side quest I had actually was trying a iced chai tea latte for the first time.
That's big news. How did that go?
It was awesome. It wasn't what I expected. I'm normally a hot chocolate girl.
How did it feel at the end of your act when you got those no's? Like, you walked out smiling. You told Ryan Seacrest you'd be worried if they had said yes. How did it feel walking off the stage?
I think I did what I came there to do, so I felt pretty good. I would, like I said, be concerned if they had said yes, and I think it brought more eyes to my actual music, which is my Sophie Powers project, and whatever, but Sophie Powers is me, and I was happy.
How does all the attention feel? Like, what are people saying online? Does it get to you? Some of the haters, what have they been saying?
Honestly, I haven't received any hate. Like, at least I haven't seen it myself, shockingly enough. All of the attention has been very positive and widespread, actually, globally, rather than just in the US. And I'm super thankful.
Are you struck by any of the positive things that people have said?
Well, yeah, I thought I would at least get some backlash. The majority of people understood what I was trying to do, though. And I guess that's shout out to the American Idol editors.
What were you trying to do? Was it just get attention for your other work? I mean, was there something deeper going on? What do you think it was that American Idol got?
Honestly, there was nothing deeper.
But that makes it deep to me. It's like Andy Warhol. Like, it's just a can of soup, but it's also so much more. Sometimes people look to amazing art and think there's something deeper, but sometimes a spade is just a spade. And you are an amazing spade.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes creating art without thinking and overlooking it and overjudging yourself becomes some of the best art.
I completely agree with that statement, and that's what I think you did on American Idol.
No intentions of that, but I will take it as a compliment. Thank you, David.
But there's something very chaotic about what you do. Do you embrace that chaos? Like, do you embrace kind of just the subversiveness, the rebelliousness of it?
I embrace chaos in all aspects of my life. I love it. And I think a lot of creatives can relate to that. I'm assuming you live a little bit of a chaotic life.
I do. I consider this art actually what I do, which is really weird because radio can also be very like newsy. But yeah, when things go off the rails on my show, when something unexpected happens and we roll with it, those are my favorite moments. They're why I do this. But let's talk about you. One more question here. Lionel Richie thought you reminded him of his daughter. Was it weird to hear that?
No, it was a massive compliment. I used to watch The Simple Life, actually. And I believe Nicole was my age during that. So, unless he was referencing Sophia, but I mean, both of them are so cool.
Yeah, I am struck by your chaos and creativity comment, though, like the importance of that. Well, thank you so much for doing the show. It was a great pleasure having you. I loved the video. You are a legend. I look up to you, even though I'm like 100 times older than you.
Thanks for having me on. I mean, my socials are at Sophie Powers, so stick around and watch the chaos, David, and anyone listening.
Newly crowned Instagram model, but definitely a 20-year-old Canadian pop star, Sophie Powers. Sophie, thanks again for doing the show. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate you.
After the break, it's time for technology time. You won't believe the update from the guy who, as sort of a joke, well, a disgruntled ex-employee joke, hacked Disney World's menus and then had the FBI come down on them with 1,000 bricks. I'm David Cooper. This is The Last Show.
last show with David Cooper. Procrastinate your life away with us.
The world's greatest hero, a man who hacked Disney's menus at Disney World to have them display hilarious things. One side point here, he changed the allergens in some of the meals, which is dangerous. But he added profanity to the menus, he changed prices. It was a very funny prank by an employee. I'm here on It's Time for Technology Time with Carmi Levy to discuss technology stories, including that one. What do you make of this Disney worker, Carmi, putting the allergy thing aside, which is dangerous? You know, you don't want to tell someone something doesn't have peanuts when it does. But someone who hacks the menus at Disney World, to me, is a hero.
I mean, haven't we all harbored, revenge fantasies? You tell someone to take this job and shove it. And this guy got into an argument he used to work for Disney. His name was Michael Schur, got into an argument with his supervisor, was ultimately terminated, obviously had a beef with them. How many of us who have been in a similar situation wouldn't love to just stick it to our former employer? And looking at this through that lens, that's exactly what this guy did. He still managed to sign into his old systems. They didn't lock him out after they let him go. He was able to go into the menu management system. That was his original job, so he knew what he was doing. And he messed with them. He made some things cheaper. He changed the ingredients on some of them. He was having a grand old time. He took shellfish and he changed it to hellfish, like a 4-year-old kid. The 10-ounce filet mignon suddenly became an 8-ounce filet mignon. And the giddy up, which is vodka, lemonade, and iced tea, he lowered it by $2. So he made it cheaper for everybody. And so he was just having a grand old time with it. From where I sit, I would love to do that. I would love to just, stick it. But as the husband of someone with some fairly significant allergies, he removed some of the allergy warnings from some of the dishes. And although thankfully no one was injured, the changes were discovered before they went to production. So nobody at a Disney restaurant ever saw these things. This could have had a tragic ending. And I think that's sort of the thing, is that, as much as he is a bit of an anti-hero, this kind of thing, I think, illustrates just how vulnerable things as simple as a menu management system can be to being messed with. Imagine if you can't trust anything that you read from the moment that you leave the house because there's a disgruntled employee somewhere who's lurking in the background and is going to mess with the descriptions. That's a nightmare scenario.
Also, side note, breaking into computer systems that you shouldn't, even if you have the password, even if you can guess the password, is unfortunately a crime. And the FBI came down pretty hard on this guy.
Yeah, so he is. So Disney investigated, kind of saw him messing around and called in the FBI, and they were able to get enough evidence against him. He didn't do a whole lot to cover his tracks. At one point, he went to a former colleague's house whose systems he had also messed with, and he waved to the Ring doorbell camera as he left the property. So he was pretty easy to find. He has now been sentenced to 36 months in a federal prison.
Wow.
By a federal judge in Florida. So, now we know, if you're going to mess with Disney, they are a vengeful sort, and they will come after you, and, they will call the FBI, and you're not going to have a good day. Apparently, Mr. Michael Schur is not going to have a good day for 3 years.
I feel like petty computer systems breaking into crime, if that made grammatical sense, I feel like it's so common, ex-employees breaking into things, sharing documents, that when there's a clear-cut case like this and the FBI gets involved, they come down hard. You always hear this, like the guy who created the dark web, he got a life sentence or a 25-year sentence or something like that. They really do come down hard on anyone who messes with cyber crime laws. And is that a good thing to make an example? Because it's often so easy to break into systems these days. Maybe 36 months seems like a really rough sentence in a federal prison for changing some menu items.
It really is. I think they are trying to send a message. I think, and I'm not. It's not that Disney is guilty here. But I think this is a message to all employers, is that you got to take a look at your systems and your HR processes, your exit processes. and your cybersecurity processes around how you bring people on board and what happens when they leave. And that's on Disney. Disney didn't do what it needed to do to close the door behind this guy as he left the company. They made it ridiculously easy for him to use backdoor accesses to roam the system just as he had been when he was employed there. So, if you're a company with any kind of digital platform, look at this platform, look at your processes and ask yourself, are you doing enough, or are you vulnerable to a disgruntled ex-employee? So there's some shared responsibility here too, but obviously the court doesn't care about that part.
Well, I think this leads nicely into our next story. May the 1st, I kind of hate it on the radio when hosts, there's these radio prep sites. Maybe I'm piercing a little bit behind the wheel. I don't use them, but some hosts, some programs, some networks, and fine if you use them. But often it's like, what to do on my talk radio show today, and they have ideas, and there's always some day for something, like World Lederhosen Day, or World Coffee Day, or World Call Your Mother Day, and it's just like when it's a slow news day and there's nothing to cover, you always hear on the radio Happy Blank Day, and they're often very stupid. This one though I think is relevant, and I want to cover it. World Password Day, totally relevant to this. May the 1st tonight. What do we do on World Password Day? What are we celebrating?
We remind ourselves that we need to do more to make our passwords more secure. And this pops up in my agenda year after year. And I think what depresses me most about the World Password Day story is that every year the story is the same. So in this case, this year Cyber News did a deep dive analysis of the passwords that people use. They looked at 19 billion different passwords. And they found that only 6% of them were actually unique. In many cases, people were using the same password that had been assigned when the hardware was first installed or when the account was first set up. So the most popular passwords are 123456 or 111111 or this is my favorite, password.
Yes, what a great password. Password.
Which is ridiculous, right? Because it makes it so easy for cyber criminals to do what they do. Oh, and they never bothered changing the default. I can literally walk right in. It's like having a master key for the lock on everybody's digital front door. And so it's an important reminder that we need to, maybe take a little more responsibility. We need to go into our settings and we need to get rid of those default passwords and use harder to guess passwords and, or in some cases, phrases, throw in some upper and lowercase characters, maybe special characters, punctuation, things like that. Use two-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication, biometrics. But we're just too lazy. Most of us just use the same password across every system and we don't change it. I know people who still have passwords they've been using since elementary school and they're, a lot older than elementary school age. So we're basically, every time you hear of a breach, every time you hear of people being victimized online, there's a through line to the fact that we just don't take passwords seriously. And I'm okay if we remind ourselves once a year, hey, get serious about this, because if we don't, we're going to be the next victim.
Are there password tools that we should be using? I know there's password managers.
Yeah.
This might be unpaid brand ambassadoring or unpaid brand advertisement here, but I don't use one. I've got a system that's pretty safe, but I'm thinking about using one. Is there one you use or ones you recommend?
Yeah.
Software tools to generate highly secure passwords and then store them for you so you don't have to remember them.
Yeah, the one that I use is called, and I've tried a bunch of different ones, but the one that I've settled on is 1Password. And it's, I'm Canadian. I'm from Southern Ontario. I live in London, Ontario. And this company was founded literally down the road from my house. So in St. Thomas, Ontario, their headquarters is in Toronto. So I'm a big believer in supporting Canadian. So I support the Canadian team. Dashlane is one that I would as well. That's gotten some pretty good reviews. And all that matters is that you do something. In other words, if you want to use a password management app, then that's great because you put all of your accounts into there and then it manages it for you. It changes to highly secure passwords that then get updated every month or 2 months or whatever. And you don't have to remember your password. You don't get locked out because of it. It's the app that manages that. But even if you use a notebook and you write everything down and then put it in a locked drawer, that's better than using the same password across all of your systems and all of your devices, which a lot of people still do.
Get hacked once, get hacked everywhere if you use the same password.
Exactly.
It's time for Technology Time. We'll continue. We'll discuss Amazon launching its first batch of internet Satellites. Looks like there's some competition for SpaceX's Starlink. We'll be back with more Carmi Levy in a moment. I'm David Cooper. This is The Last Show.
We're here because your heightened awareness deserves heightened entertainment. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Satellite internet. It's getting faster and better, and the most well-known one right now is SpaceX's Starlink. But that one stinks like Elon's Musk. You know what I'm saying? It's time for technology time with Carmi Levy. Amazon is about to launch its first batch of satellites with internet to compete with Starlink. Carmi, welcome back.
Good to be back. Thanks for, although I am not using Starlink, just let's be clear. Please do not protest at my house. I'm not a subscriber.
I mean, look, I have friends who don't subscribe to whatever and they have Teslas. Well, one friend.
They better be buying those bumper stickers. I bought this before Elon Musk went nuts.
There's a Cybertruck in Manhattan. I've seen it twice. It says the word Ford on the trunk in big letters. It's so funny to me. I'm like, okay, you like your car. You bought your car. You don't want to get rid of your car, but you just want everyone to know it's a Ford.
Yeah, I'm pretty impressed driving a Cybertruck in Manhattan. Very, that cannot be easy.
There's a few of them. It's odd. Yeah.
They're big. Where do you park them? You park them vertically? And how does that work?
I don't know. I think you find a spot and you just leave it there for the rest of your life. The spot's worth more than the car at this point.
That's what. Don't come near my car.
Yeah. Okay. So, Amazon, they're called the Kuiper internet satellites, named after the asteroid belt. I love that name, by the way. Tell me about them. When can I expect to see myself signing up for Kuiper internet service and buying a little unit?
Well, they just launched their first batch of rockets. It was 27 on top of an Atlas V that went up earlier this week, and they have approval to launch over 3,000 of them from U.S. authorities. So the plan is there are going to be a number of rocket launches on both ULA, United Launch Alliance rockets, as well as SpaceX. They've also bought some capacity from on Falcon 9s as well, to launch them alongside or around the same time as Starlink satellites to compete against Starlink. And so the goal is to have early service within the next year and a half to 2 years. It takes time. There have to be enough satellites up there to provide coverage. And obviously, the more satellites you have, the better the coverage is, the more bandwidth you have and capacity you have for all the people back down on Earth. Starlink, of course, it took them a couple of years to get that critical mass. They're up at about 7,000 satellites currently operational for that constellation. They are the leading constellation. So it'll be soon, but it's almost like this is Starlink's game to lose, because they are so far ahead of everyone else. Starlink was the first one and they're operational. Now Amazon's Project Kuiper has their first small batch of satellites launched. Canada has Telesat. They have something called Lightspeed, and they have yet to launch their first satellites. Those are supposed to go into orbit starting next year. And Europe has its own constellation known as OneWeb, and they also have a few in orbit that they're just getting started. So right now, if you want to subscribe now, you only have one choice. Over the next, say, year or two, those choices will grow. But Starlink is still going to be the dominant provider because they just have so many more birds in orbit. It's really hard for everyone else to catch up.
I know in the next few years you're going to be on the show and we're going to be talking about the first major crash between Starlink and Kuiper, or two of these services. Eventually, there's going to be so much junk up there, it's going to start hitting each other. But for now, I don't know, buy a unit, use the internet.
Yeah.
Stream 4K adult videos in the middle of the woods for all I care.
Well, you're starting to see it. Most airlines now have Starlink service available while you're flying, and some of them, in fact, will offer it for free. I know that Air Canada has just launched some service, on some of its planes. As the planes are updated, they get that Starlink capability in the U.S. American Airlines, United offer that as well. So that last place where you no longer had internet access, well, that's no longer the case thanks to Starlink. And of course, if you're an astronomer, you're not happy about this. They're reporting that it's getting harder to do observations from telescopes on Earth because the Starlink satellites, there's so many of them in space now, that they're constantly leaving tracks across their imagery.
It's a new comet. Oh, it's just Starlink.
Yeah, it's just the streak. They're trying to use software to interpolate and fix that, but it's this huge battle, right? Because the U.S. government has authorized the launch of these satellites, and yet it's causing major problems with potential collisions as well as visibility for observers on Earth. And it's only going to get worse as more and more companies launch not just internet access satellites into orbit, but all sorts of other ones. It's getting cheaper. You can launch smaller ones for less money. And unfortunately, that means the potential for, remember the movie Gravity? For that kind of event to happen goes up the more things we put into low Earth orbit.
Let's talk Netflix, completely changing the subject here. One thing online streaming has done and changed the way that we view television and movies, not in how we do it on demand, but like actually the watching experience. I feel like it just sort of happened with nobody talking about it. Everyone over the last 5 or 10 years has just turned subtitles on.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't watch a show now without subtitles. I miss dialogue. I don't know what's happened to my brain, but when I watch a show or a movie without subtitles, it just feels odd at this point.
Oh, I'm right there. I'm right there with you. Subtitles are always on for me for exactly that same reason, because I find I'm a reader to begin with. That's just what I do. And I find it's just so much easier to keep track when you have that visual cue as well, in addition to the audio one.
Closed captions aren't really designed for that. They have cues that are helpful for people who are hearing impaired.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see things that are sometimes odd or funny, like dramatic music plays. And it's like, yeah, dude, I know the dramatic music is playing. But the original intention on these things were for those with hearing impairments. Makes sense. And we just kind of liked the feature and we used it. Well, now Netflix is kind of realizing that and adding 2 flavors of captions, one for people who just want the words, and then the other, of course, for those who are hearing impaired.
Yeah.
Is this a new thing?
It is, and they're starting it very slowly. They just introduced a movie called You, and that's the first movie, and it's a Netflix production that they're encoding with this new version of closed captions. So it removes the descriptions, so it won't say dramatic music intensifies or loud explosion. It only has dialogue between characters, and so according to Netflix, it's less intrusive if you're using closed captions without and you don't have a hearing issue. So you'll actually see 2 versions of closed captioning in the system. The traditional closed captions are still called now have CC, so it'll say like the language and CC, so in our case English CC, whereas the new version without those descriptions is just called English or whatever language you're watching. So it kind of makes sense. It recognizes that watching in the digital era, the streaming era, is different. It also recognizes that listening to dialogue is harder now than it has been before. Actors no longer speak directly to the camera. It's a much more natural kind of acting style. And that affects hearability or your ability to hear properly. And also the way they're produced. In many cases, background music or sound effects are so dominant in the overall soundscape of a movie that dialogue sometimes gets lost. And if you think that it's harder to hear dialogue, there's a reason for it. It's the way movies are being produced today. So it will make sense. And I think it just reinforces the fact that more of us are using this, even if we don't have a problem with our hearing. And I think this is kind of cool, though, because, watching how people watch a Netflix movie versus going into a theater, when you go to a theater, you're watching, you're focused, you're not using your phone, or at least you shouldn't be. Whereas at home, who really cares? Most people watch with a second screen up. They're reading something on their phone or their tablet. They're kind of multitasking. But when you put closed captions on, you're focused on the programming and you're not missing it and you're right into it. That's hard to do. And it's hard to read the closed captions if you're watching a second screen. It's an encouragement to put your phone down and enjoy the show.
Fun fact, I'd always wondered why they were called closed. And in prep for this, I researched it. Closed just indicates that they're not on until you turn them on. For example, open captions, like if you're watching an English program with foreign dialogue, those captions are on because you need to know what somebody in Spanish is saying because it's an English program. You might not understand Spanish.
Yeah.
That's why they're called closed. I've always wondered that.
How cool is that? I never even realized that there was a story behind it until you just described it. Thank you for that.
Well, I'm like, what's closed about them? Why are they closed? Yes, they're captions, but what does closed mean? It's just, in the old time of television when the broadcasters would send it out on cable, the default is off. and you can turn them on or open them.
That's really cool.
Just like closing or opening an application. Carmi Levy, technology expert. Thank you for joining me on It's Time for Technology Time.
So great being with you, David. Thanks for having me.
Lost someone close to you, and during grieving, you thought you saw them or dreamed about them? Turns out that's more common than you'd think. We'll cover that after the break.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. For those who know that questioning everything includes questioning this show's existence. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Grief isn't just about tears and casseroles. It can be strange, it can be vivid, even comforting. My guest, Dr. Joshua Black, who's a grief and bereavement researcher and host of the Grief Dreams podcast, studies how people continue to feel connected to those they've lost, often through dreams or waking experiences that feel incredibly real. From sensing a late partner's presence to dreaming of a beloved pet, we're going to chat about the mysterious ways we stay bonded to the dead. Joshua, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
There's a big headline on your research here, and it's most bereaved people report dreaming of or sensing the person or pet that they've lost. Why do you think this kind of connection is common and so powerful?
Well, that's something we're still trying to figure out. And it's a big question that you're asking too. Like first, like how common it is, it's very surprising to me. When I first started doing this research, it wasn't something that was talked about in the grief or bereavement circles, or any kind of training that you sort of do when it comes to grief. But now we're realizing dreaming of the deceased is very common after loss, and also having these waking experiences, like seeing the deceased, hearing them, feeling their touch, or even smelling them.
We're not going to talk about like the supernatural here. This is like a psychological.
Well, we don't know, right? And that's the thing. And as a researcher, you just don't really know. Like, yeah, it's probably something's going on inside, but what it is, we don't fully understand. But also a lot of people interpret these events as supernatural, and that's okay. Like, I don't care like how they interpret it. I just want it to be comforting for them. And so if it's, the issue is when it's distressing for them, it can complicate their grief. And that's where I think the research comes in to help normalize these experiences, because for whatever reason, these are human experiences. It's not based on if you're spiritual or not. That's more of your interpretation of the experience.
Sure. And these experiences, like if I had one, and I never have, but I've never lost someone who I've shared like a household with. And I'm imagining my kitty right now, and I talk to him every day. I feel his presence every day. Sometimes I think he's in the room when he's not. I can only imagine what'll happen when he sadly passes. But if you're finding that these experiences are extremely common, I think a lot of people keep it private because they, don't want to be called crazy or don't want to be labeled as having very strange things. You looked at both people who lost romantic partners and those who lost pets. Is there a difference in those two?
Well, I guess. Well, it depends on like their relationship with the individual, right? Some people, love their partner. Other people really despise them, but they're stuck with them for, financial reasons or whatnot, right? And some people like really have a very amazing connection with their animal. Other people see it as an object. And so I think their grief really determines by their relationship. And then through that, like the experiences are a little different, but overall, like the dreams that they're having are very similar. They're really about love, that people sort of still have within them, that connection that they sort of are bringing to that moment. They can have also these negative dreams that can be very disheartening to them. So it could be how the individual died, or that they just can't talk to them, or they keep going away. When it comes to these waking experiences, they also seem, very similar in general, that they have all these sort of different types of waking experiences. It does seem to be a little more, happens a little more often for people who have had a partner than a pet. And we're still trying to figure that out. And it could just be the sampling that we used, and that's just who we collected. But yeah, there's still a lot to figure out. But basically what it's saying is that if you are grieving someone, it doesn't have to be a pet, it could be a friend, it could be said like your parents, that these experiences, if they do happen, just understand that they're normal. and to not be distressed or think that you're crazy or you have a psychological problem. I think that's the biggest issue that we're finding, is that people think they do because everyone keeps it a secret if it does happen. And so what the research is doing is allowing people to just normalize what is going on in the grief journey. And that's part of grief literacy.
Let's break this down into waking experiences and dream-related experiences. What exactly counts as a waking experience? Maybe give me some examples here.
Yeah, so anything that happens while you're awake that is related to seeing or feeling the presence of the deceased. So that could be seeing them, actually seeing them in waking life, smelling them. It could be feeling their touch, or hearing them. And so like sometimes you hear them call your name or something. And so it's all like in that moment, you can only expect, you're like, I know they're dead, but yet I'm having these experiences. A lot of people say, what's wrong with me? But, there is a book, The Grieving Brain, that came out recently. And it does sort of talk about how after we know someone has actually, physically died, that the brain hasn't really upgraded and adapted that, because we have such a pattern of thinking that they're always going to be around even when they're not around. And so it could be the brain sort of just reworking itself and neurons firing. Like, we don't know, but there is people exploring the grieving brain in the sense of, trying to explain this phenomena.
And on the dream side, what sort of dreams are you observing when you ask people about their experiences?
Yeah, so it's amazing, some of these dreams, because when I talk about these dreams, they really are life-changing for many people, because of the love and the power of them. Like, a lot of times they can provide answers to questions that the individual had. They can also provide a release of guilt or grief that people can carry after a loss, if they, didn't able to apologize for something, or they got in a fight right before the individual died. But for the most part, they are positive. There are a large sample that also do have these negative dreams, around 40% of people, and it's around 90% will have these positive dreams. And the negative dreams just are disturbing. And a lot of people have repeated negative dreams. And what the issue with that is that a lot of people, don't know how to deal with these negative dreams, which we can talk about if you want. But the other big thing is it restricts their sleep, and sleep is very important for grief in the sense of trying to digest and integrate the loss in your life.
I do want to talk about people struggling to deal with these negative experiences. What recommendations would you have to someone having recurring negative dreams about someone or some pet that they've lost?
Yeah, so one of the big things there is to just understand that it's common, and dreams from the Western perspective relates to basically your waking life. So if you're having negative dreams, it's something that we would expect because you're grieving. And research has shown that if you're sad in waking life, you're going to have more negative dreams. If you're happy, you're going to have more positive dreams. And so, with that, understanding that after grief and trauma, you're going to expect to have more negative dreams. And so it's actually quite surprising people are having so many positive dreams of the deceased. So that's the first thing, normalize it. The next thing is that you can do something about it. And so it's called dream rescripting, and it works for children and adults. And basically what you're doing is you're rescripting the end of the dream after you wake up to reduce that kind of distress and sort of have some kind of power over that dream. And so what you do is, if you have a dream, let's say someone's, chasing you, you wake up and then you continue that dream. So someone's chasing me, I turn around, I look, and it's, let's say, my deceased father. And then I hug him, he tells me he loves me. And then that's the dream I repeat and rehearse in waking life.
So sort of like maybe journal it with a positive ending, or think about it with a positive ending.
That's basically what it is. Yeah, that's basically what it is. Yeah, it's such a simple technique, but what research has shown is that it reduces those dreams from occurring, or if you do have dreams, they reduce the distress of those dreams, which it's the distress that really causes people to have issues in waking life. It's not the dream itself per se. And so those are the two big things. And just like in the normalizing it is a big part of it. Other people have other cultural understandings of these dreams. So some people will take these dreams as a visitation. And I always sort of pause on that. Like, I don't know what goes on, if that is a thing or not, but we do know that we would expect these dreams based on grief and trauma. So let's go and focus on that first. And then if they're still continuing, then we can talk about sort of maybe if it's the afterlife or some other thing going on. But what I've seen in just the research itself, as people process these negative dreams, their dreams become more positive. So overall, you can sort of realize that, by working on these dreams, you'll probably have more positive dreams moving forward.
I'm here with Dr. Joshua Black, a grief and bereavement researcher. Check out his podcast, Grief Dreams. When we come back, we'll talk the positive side, the potential therapeutic value of having a positive dream of someone or something. I guess are pets things? I don't know. Someone or some pet that you've lost. We'll be back.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. The show that asks the questions other shows are afraid to ask. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Grief. It manifests in strange, vivid, odd, comforting, discomforting ways. People you've lost can show up in feeling your late partner's presence in your home. It can also show up in dreams. I'm here with Dr. Joshua Black. He's a grief and bereavement researcher, host of the Grief Dreams podcast. Joshua, welcome back to the show.
No, thank you for having me back.
Before the break, we were talking negative dreams that we experience when we've lost someone or some pet, and how best to deal with them. You had a really interesting strategy, this idea of waking up after a particularly disturbing experience and just kind of continuing it, whether it's journaling, thinking about it, making space to end the dream consciously the way you would have wanted to have ended it. That's kind of a really positive exercise. I imagine you get some positive results from it. You also found in your research, people have a lot of comforting dreams around the deceased. Say more about that. Were you surprised by the amount of people who reported that?
Yeah, because one of the things that we went into the research realizing is that, it's that typically when people dream just in general, they'll have more negative dreams just because people are going to bed stressed, anxious. So you're expecting to have more negative dreams. After trauma, your dreams are consistently more negative. So we came in because people are grieving and, some of them are experiencing great trauma to have more of these negative dreams of the deceased, but that actually didn't happen. It was more people are having these really comforting dreams of the deceased. So we had to scratch our head because the dreams are acting differently when it comes to the deceased being present in the imagery. And so there's something about that. And there's something I think that helps people through that and with that. And we realize that it can help people with their grief in many different ways. If you think about the last time you see someone, they're usually dead or in a casket or something like that, right? In these dreams, well, they're happy, they're light. There's usually this love that is a part of the imagery, and you see it across cultures, which I think is fascinating, that maybe the context of what they talk about is different based on, let's say, your belief system, if you're religious or not, what they say is different. But overall, the theme of this love still is there, and they still love you, and that it's going to be okay. You're going to make it through, the hope is there. And it helps people so much as they work through such a difficult challenge in their life, which is grief. It's a very hard change, especially when that individual has been such a rock in your life to feel love and to feel valued within the time. And a lot of times we think that that's gone, but these dreams allow us to believe that it's still there in some way. And so some people take it as a visitation, but that just helps them with their spirituality and their religion usually, because that's one of the things that gets challenged when someone you care about dies. Other times, people who are atheists will still have these dreams and just realize it was a beautiful moment, and it helps them with their grief. And it's interesting how people can go back years later and still remember that dream and get a positive feeling from that in difficult times. And what I would like to say also is even these negative dreams, even though they're occurring and they can cause distress, there's a lot of wisdom in there to understand what you're processing when it comes to your grief. Because a lot of times we think we're further than we are because we're so used to repressing our emotions. But these dreams allow us to sort of say, hey, you still haven't worked on this, or here are some things that you're still trying to deal with. If it's guilt, if it's regret, if it's the challenges of parenting. But there's a lot of knowledge in there. So it's not, I try to always teach that don't be afraid of your dreams. There's a lot of wisdom in them, even the negative ones.
For people who report seeing their deceased loved ones healthy and happy in dreams, my last memories of certain loved ones who are sick and dying, there's this unfortunate power of the last time we see them. I lament that. I lament that as a part of the human experience. I remember when my aunt was passing. I remember when my grandmother was passing. The image of them extremely frail and unwell and in the hospital. is a powerful one, for better or worse. But people report seeing their loved ones healthy and happy in their dreams. Do you think there's some therapeutic value in that? Like the brain is helping us rewrite that ending in a way that provides closure?
100%. I think that there is just seeing them once more time. Like a lot of people say, oh, give $1 million to see them one more time. Well, you get a chance. And like what happens in that moment is a lot of not just seeing them, like it's part of it, but I think it's also what you hear from them, which is usually, something about that either you're forgiven, they love you, they ask about your day, or like you be able to say something to them. Because a lot of times people have challenges if they, have regrets of not be able to, if someone died very unexpectedly, like my father did, I didn't get a chance to say goodbye. And I had a dream where I got a chance to actually say that and to tell them that I loved them, which is two things I didn't get a chance to do. And I woke up completely changed. And a lot of people can have that because one of the things people do in therapy is called like an empty chair technique, where you imagine the individual across from you and you say whatever you need to say. But this is like an actual moment that the brain doesn't know that the person is, that you're dreaming unless you feel it's a lucid dream. But that it's there. And so you have a moment that the brain feels that's real. And that has, I think, more potential for helping us in our grieving process than we really realize. And I think the more we know about these dreams, the more we'll probably be able to help people in waking life using similar techniques.
In your investigation into all this stuff, your paper, your study, mentions continuing bonds. That sounds like a very gentle phrase. What are continuing bonds and how can they help people through grief?
Yeah, so continuing bonds is just continuing a connection with the deceased after they've died. And we do this a lot of times just because it's part of the culture. So we'll think about them, we'll look at photos, we'll talk about them. And that has shown, like I've done some research in that area, that it has shown to be beneficial to some people. There's going to be some people that are avoidant of that. Like, so people with an avoidant attachment style may not do that technique because it's be too overwhelming for them because they're used to repressing their emotions as a way of coping with the challenges of life. And so that's where actually these waking experiences actually come into play because what we found is that people who have a more of an avoidant attachment style, so they repress their feelings of grief, what happens is they're having more of these types of experiences where the deceased is being in front of them. Yeah, they're having these waking experiences. And so there could be something to that. It could be one of the theories is that it could be the mind getting them to sort of focus on their grief because it's like, it's intrusive, right? It's very, they have no conscious effort into that. And so it could remind them to be able to look at their sadness and to process that.
I would be remiss if I didn't try to make this interview at least a little fun at the end. Let's talk about pets. There's a movie, Flow. It won, I don't know, a bunch of Oscars. It's an apocalyptic world. There's maybe some climate catastrophe. All the people are gone. And this cat is having all these like ragtag adventures. And he goes into a broken down house and sits in a bed. And then the camera kind of zooms out and you see there's carvings of the cat everywhere. There's photos of the cat. And it's very clear that it was the owner's house. And the cat is sleeping in the bed for some comfort. I guess my question is, do you think pets ever dream of us when we're gone?
I'd definitely say yes. Why not? Why wouldn't they? Like if they love us and they can dream, so why wouldn't they be dreaming of us? And then it'd be interesting to see if they have similar dreams as us, where they're relooking at some of the relationships that they sort of had with us and what they loved. I know when it comes to just dreams in general, like pet loss dreams are similar but also different. They have different themes. And one of the themes is that a lot of times the owners will replay or have different routines that they'll do. Like that could be like going for walks or whatever. But one of the interesting things I saw in a couple dreams so far is it was a dog who died, and the owner's dream is a dog talking to him, like actually talking to
Whoa.
him. And yeah, which is wild, but it only could happen in a dream. And both those times it was that it was okay to get another dog. And I think you see in these dreams a lot of the challenges that people are basically working with when it comes to their grief, and they don't want to jump too early or to think people have forgotten about that dog, and so there's that challenge. Is it right time? Will I dishonor my own loss? And so these dreams are saying no, you should, and then people end up doing it and honoring their own pet because of it.
Yeah, this idea of like a pet laying in the bed of the owner because it smells like the owner after the owner's gone. I got to admit, when I saw that scene in the movie, I started, because it's a black cat and I own a black cat, I started crying. The tears, even just thinking about it. Anyway, you can find Dr. Joshua Black's podcast. It's called the Grief Dreams Podcast. He's a grief and bereavement researcher. Joshua, thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
After the break, we'll cover your destiny beliefs as they come to dating. Like, do you believe in soulmates? Or do you think relationships are built over time? Turns out, if you believe in the romantic concept of soulmates, breakups might be way, way harder for you. How hard and why? Find out coming up next.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Taste the forbidden fruit of knowledge. The last show with David Cooper.
Breakups are hard, but if you believe in the concept of soulmates, they might be way, way harder for you than for others, and possibly involve a lot more low-level internet Instagram stalking than anyone else. Some of us can't let go, others move on faster. I want to know why. I'm here with Dr. Ashley Thompson. She's a psychology professor at the University of Minnesota, Duluth, to discuss. Ashley, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So you looked into those who kind of believe in a soulmate. How do you even define the concept of a soulmate for like an academic paper? Because I don't even know that I have a straight definition.
And to be honest, we did not operationally define it either. So essentially what the purpose of the paper was to take this concept of these implicit or these lay beliefs pertaining to romantic relationships. And they're on two different continuums. Those were on the continuum of growth beliefs and destiny beliefs. So people with growth beliefs think relationships grow over time. Successful relationships are a byproduct of overcoming obstacles and growing as a couple. Whereas those with destiny beliefs believe in these romantic ideals that we learn from rom-coms and Disney movies, right? Like the key to successful relationships are finding your one and only. That true love can conquer all. So that's really what we did, is we measured the extent to which they were on these two continuums, growth and destiny beliefs.
I'm definitely a growth person. For me, real intimacy is that like laying in bed after eating cheese, you're both gassy, you're not intimate, and you watch TV together after dating for 10 years. That's to me where a relationship ends up, and that's where you want it to end up. But there are those who believe it like love and first sight, or that people were meant to be together. And that's all fine and well, except for when the relationship ends abruptly for whatever reason, isn't it?
Yes. And what's more, so not only is what important the fact that you believe in a soulmate, it's whether or not you think you've found your soulmate. So the belief in soulmates can have disastrous consequences post-breakup. But what's more disastrous is believing that you actually had found your soulmate.
And that happens to people. You know, they believe they found the one, and their one isn't that interested to have a long-term relationship with them. And things can end, or they can end for horrible reasons, like somebody passing or falling ill or whatever. Again, when you're in that relationship where you believe in soulmates, things can be okay. I think that can be a good relationship. Walk us through, but why believing in that makes it so hard to let go.
Sure, right. So if you believe in a soulmate, in this perfect person, in your one and only, right? Which is what these Disney movies would have us believe, right? If you believe in this construct and then you think you have found this one true match for you, then imagine how you might feel when that one true match for you, the only one that exists in the universe, is no longer your romantic partner. It would be devastating, right? It would lead to this complete, I would think, hopelessness, helplessness, that you no longer have the ability to love. You will no longer have your person. So what might you turn to? Trying to rekindle that, trying not to let go, trying to reach back out to that person and say, hey, I think we made a mistake. I think you made a mistake. This is what was meant to be, right? So you could see how devastating it would be to think you found your person, but they're no longer there.
And the internet is your enemy here. I feel like 35 plus years ago, that would be the end of it. You would just be pining, writing in your journal, complaining to your therapist, maybe trying to call the person, and when they rejected your advances, just being alone at home with no stimulus. Now you can find endless content. Like if your partner's tweeting, if they're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, you could find yourself watching that stuff obsessively. And that is not a good like mental health situation.
No, I mean, come on, we hear about research all the time about some of the negative consequences of social media. And that's ultimately what led me to do this work, right? A lot of work on sort of post-relationship contact has been really extreme, right? Like stalking. But we know with these advancements in technology, like you mentioned, right, when we're talking about Snapchat and TikTok and Instagram, there are so many ways to sort of contact or track an ex-partner, and we just don't know a whole lot about it, right? These advancements, it takes so long for research to catch up to them. And so that was kind of the onus of the study is like, how do these beliefs impact not necessarily these extreme behaviors like stalking, but some of these more quote unquote benign behaviors like checking to see who liked your ex-partner's post on Instagram, right? Which I think we're all sort of guilty. It's the internet and advancements in social media have allowed us to do that and make it really easy to do that.
It's such a dark pattern, this seeing who liked things. Like, I wish these features didn't exist. They at best, they're neutral. At worst, they bring out the worst in us. If people believe that falling in love, having a fulfilling relationship is more a growth thing, do so well with breakups, is there things that those who believe in soulmates can learn to shift and get over or become more growth mindseted here?
Yeah, that is one of the coolest things I thought that emerged from our work is that these belief systems we hold, these growth or these destiny beliefs are actually malleable. They can be changed, right? So what we did is we gave participants these dopey little fictitious Psychology Today articles that either said, hey, the key to a successful relationship is growing as a couple. It's learning to overcome obstacles. Whereas other people were told via these fictitious articles that the key to successful relationships are finding your one and only. And what we found is that when we told people that the key was growth, they actually reported endorsing more growth beliefs. And so it seems as though, at least for a short period of time, these implicit beliefs can be changed, and that perhaps this is something that clinicians could use or therapists could use by encouraging their clients to think in these ways. And that could be done via these articles. It could be through little exercises, right? Little journaling exercises or things like that. So we know that we can encourage people to adopt these mindsets in an effort to, for example, prevent some of these vicious cycle behaviors after a relationship where you're trying to get back with a partner, and to kind of flip the script and say, hey, maybe there isn't such a thing as a true soulmate. Maybe this is something that I can grow from and find someone who's better suited for me in the future.
Destiny-oriented thinking when it comes to relationships, even when you're in that relationship where you found the one, you found that it could lead to something called relationship burnout. Tell me about that.
That is actually something I'm working on at this very moment. So in response to this research, a lot of work has been done looking at implicit beliefs and how they relate to infidelity and breakup. But I wanted to go even before that. Like, how might these beliefs impact how we feel before we get to the breakup part? And so what we're doing right now, we have a study live online at this very moment where we're looking at how our growth and our destiny beliefs impact burnout, not only how susceptible somebody is to relationship burnout, but also how do we react to burnout? So are people high in growth beliefs more burnt out because of all the work they think they need to put into relationships? Conversely, are people high in destiny more likely to end a relationship when they get burnt out? Because are they likely to think, well, this wasn't my soulmate, sayonara, right? And we're finding some evidence for both of those, where folks high in growth beliefs are feeling a bit more burnt out, but those high in destiny beliefs, assuming they don't think that partner is their soulmate, right? If they don't think that partner's their soulmate, they're more likely to break it off. And even there's some research to suggest they're more likely to ghost a partner in those instances because, well, that's not my soulmate. Let's go and find my one and only.
Yeah, and you set yourself up for disappointment, like the first bit of adversity, the first fight. If you think soulmates aren't supposed to fight or soulmates, everything's supposed to be perfect, you can just disappear or change your mind. What happens when maybe you didn't research this, but I am curious. What happens when one partner is destiny mindseted? We'll say that's a word, has a destiny mindset and the other partner has a growth mindset. Can two people be together like that? Or
I feel like you're reading my mind right now. That is one of my next steps. There is very little research looking at sort of concordance in couples' beliefs, right? So what leads to the most satisfying relationships, the highest quality relationships? What leads to a relationship longevity? Is it folks who align in their beliefs? And if so, is it folks who are both high in growth, both high in destiny? What happens when they're opposite? I would speculate because growth beliefs over and over again prove themselves as a bit more adaptive in relationships, that two folks with growth beliefs would be more satisfied. They would be more committed to their partner. It would result in longer lasting relationships. That said, if you had two folks who were high in destiny beliefs, who thought they'd found their soulmate, you could see how that would be this perfect storm of this like over idealized, over romanticized relationship where it's rose colored glasses because you're going to overlook every flaw. That is something I have on my docket. How do concordance between couples' implicit beliefs, how does that impact longevity and commitment and satisfaction?
Well, I look forward to having you back to discuss that at a future date. Ashley, thanks for going over your research. This was a lot of fun.
I had a blast. Thanks for having me.
Dr. Ashley Thompson is a psychology professor at the University of Minnesota, Duluth. Up next, a scientist who's using AI not for something horrible, but something amazing, to talk to dolphins. I'm David Cooper. This is The Last Show.
Prepare to have your mind blown as we delve into the complexities of relationships, explore the cutting edge of science, and celebrate the bizarre and beautiful absurdity of the world around us. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
People use AI for all sorts of things. Some boring, emails, sorting spreadsheets, helping your toaster connect to your Wi-Fi. Some use it for evil, like manipulating elections or doing deepfakes. But finally, someone is using AI for the best possible reasons. To talk to dolphins. Our guest today is one of the lead researchers behind a new study showing that dolphins can mimic human vowel sounds. And thanks to AI, we might be on the brink of talking to dolphins. I'm here with Jack Kassewitz. He's a lead researcher at speakdolphin.com. Jack, I cannot describe to you how excited I am. You do the best research I think I've ever heard of in my life.
Well, I'm 70 years old, 78 years old. I'm having fun, and I'm working with amazing animals. And you're talking about AI. You just think about right now where AI is at this. Here I am with Meta glasses on, and I have live AI full time with me. When I get in the water with dolphins, a dolphin will pop its head up, and I can say to AI, "Who is this dolphin?" It's going to tell me that dolphin's name, how old that. It gives me the whole background of the animal I'm working with. So AI is extremely important, but there's a however in there. It's a tool. It's not necessarily the answer. The problem with AI or any machine language is it's going to come up with an answer whether it's right or wrong. So we have like John Craker, who's our lead PhD from Cornell in computational linguistics. We're looking at our results to make sure that there's not something wrong with them, that is not about. When Zeus popped his head up and said A-E-O-U, I went, holy crap! He just used vowels. What did that really mean?
Well, I want to talk about Zeus, and I want to talk about what it really means to use computers to try to understand dolphins.
Yes, sir.
But I want to start here also. Like, I know cats are way dumber than dolphins, and dogs are way dumber than dolphins, but I just use it as an example. Pet owners and those who interact with animals think they know what the animals are saying. Do you think your expectations of what dolphins say will match what they're actually saying?
See, now you've used an interesting word. What are they saying?
What are they trying to communicate to us is a better way to put it.
Yeah, I think it's more what are they sensing in their environment and how are they interpreting those sensations? We live on a planet with way too many languages, and we barely can communicate. These guys, I'm not sure if we go down this road of we're going to talk to dolphins. I think that we're going to learn a lot from them. I was talking with somebody yesterday from a national TV channel that one of the first things I think dolphins are going to tell us is that they consider us an invasive species.
We are. They're right.
They're absolutely right. So how do we deal with that? What came out of Zeus's study for me, that the most important thing was not the A-E-O-U, although it's very important. It was that Zeus was trying to communicate with me. You understand? And that's big. Yeah. That's big that here's another species on this planet trying to do the same thing that we are. And we should honor that and do it respectfully. Do I think AI is going to give us all the answers there are in terms of dolphin communication? I don't think so. I think it's going to still come down to hardware. There's a woman from the Dolphin Project who's wonderful, one of the leading researchers in the world. She has more dolphin sounds than anybody in the world. And I hope that AI can go through her data and give us some of those answers. I'm looking forward to that. I'd like to see some of I would like to see some of the early results. I would hope that when they made this release about AI is going to come up with the answer, they did some preliminary tests and got some answers. I just like to see it. I'm excited because I like to use it myself.
Okay, let's get on track here. Let's talk about Zeus. Zeus is a dolphin that you are starting to communicate with. What exactly is going on? Give me the latest in what you've been doing in your research.
Well, I've known Zeus 25 years. So I knew Zeus when Zeus was very small and as he grew up. And so dolphins in human care, and the kind of facility that I work in, which is a sanctuary, they have their own vocalizations. They make these noises. You say something to them and they make these noises. I've recorded all of them. I know we have 30 animals I'm working with right here today. I know every one of their vocalizations. In this particular case, Zeus, when I was in the water, and you have to ask me about Amaya because nobody knows this story about Amaya afterwards. But I'm in the water. Zeus does his normal vocalizations, and I said, "All right, that's great." He then comes forward and kind of nudges us, and then does this A-E-O-U sequence. So that to me was he stepped out of what his traditional, I guess like a cat meowing or a dog barking. He got away from that, and he was really trying to say something to us, trying to motivate us to understand that there was something going on. When I finished with Zeus, I'll tell you about Amaya. So when I was finished with Zeus, I stepped over to the next animal in the water. And as I stepped over, my hand rubbed up against the fence where there was a fire coral. And I went, ow! And that animal, Amaya, we have a recording of this, Amaya pops her head up and goes, ow! So there's something going on.
They want to talk to us, it would seem.
Well, yes, it's only logical. We've invaded their world and pretty much destroyed it. I think they want us to stop this crap, and let's try to work together.
I know we keep searching for intelligent life out there in the cosmos, but I've always said we haven't found intelligent life here on Earth. That includes ourselves. Is this evidence that there might be intelligent life on Earth?
That's a heck of a question. I wish I had asked that question. I think that's a heck of a question. Dolphins, I could tell you story after story of where they showed a sense of intelligence, a sense of compassion, a sense of relationship that I have not seen in humans in a long time. We've become a species that's fairly callous, fairly confused, fairly chaotic.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes is the answer to your question. I'm not sure what the question was. Let's get back on track here.
Okay.
Computers to try to analyze what any old dolphin is trying to communicate to us or maybe communicate with each other. Where are we at with that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So remember that language is all contextual. It's really, these are, I call these glasses, but that's just a word that I made up to call this. A dolphin, I think, you've asked it's a little complicated answer. A dolphin, which I believe sees with its echolocation, not through vocalization exchanges. So when he sees glasses, he passes that picture along. It's not interpretive. This is what it is. See what it is? This is whatever you want to call it. You might want to call it whatever it is. The image that animal is transferring is an image of glasses. The ironic thing about that, and you might find interesting, but that means when a dolphin is communicating using echolocation, it cannot lie. It can only show what's there. Wouldn't that be a unique thing with humans today?
We're incapable of not lying, so we're sort of like them, but the opposite.
I think what Kierkegaard and Nietzsche said, every word is a lie because it's all arbitrary.
Where are we at with trying to interpret those things in computers, and where do you think we'll be in the next few years?
Well, right now we're working on some software which will allow us to plug into an iPad, and you'll see the echolocation underwater. You plug it into there'll be a hydrophone, you plug it into your iPad, and you'll be able to see what's going on underwater, what the dolphin is seeing. Once we have a pictorial language like that, we can begin to create some exchanges between us and them. And we're down. We have a new game. We're doing a press release. You're the first to know about this in 2 weeks, called the Emoji Dolphin Game. where we've created boards where we put sentences on them with emojis, and the dolphins can interpret them. And then dolphins also can choose their own emojis and have us put them on the board and communicate with us.
I imagine the first thing they'll say to us is, please leave us alone and stop destroying our habitat. Also, may I have some fish?
Could I have some more fish? Yes, that's exactly correct. Thanks for the fish.
Well, Jack Kassewitz is a lead researcher at speakdolphin.com. Jack, I have enjoyed this chat. I love your research. Keep at it. And hopefully you'll have some exciting news that we've made first contact with the first intelligent species found in the universe.
And why don't you come down when we do that? You'll come down here with us and be there with us.
I would love that. Thanks again, Jack.
Thank you.
After the break, we'll discuss how ancient Mars was recently discovered to be not dry, not dusty like we know today, but a place that might have rained, snowed, even had lakes and rivers. And how have planetary scientists discovered this? Computer simulations? How does that work? We'll find out together in just a few moments.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Your nightly rebellion against predictable radio and podcasts. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Ancient Mars, not the dry, dusty planet we know today, but a place where it might have rained, snowed, and even had lakes and rivers. Joining us is Dr. Amanda Steckel, a planetary scientist from the California Institute of Technology. She works on Mars, and her study says that it was once surprisingly Earth-like. How does she know? Well, cutting-edge simulations to look billions of years into the past. Let's rewrite Martian weather together. Amanda, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I love Mars, the red planet. I used to fight with my ex-wife a lot because I said, if I get a chance to colonize Mars, I'm going. And she would scream at me. She's like, you're not going. Odd fight. I don't think I'll ever get the chance. But is Mars something you've always been fascinated with as a planetary scientist?
Oh, absolutely. Who isn't?
There's people out there who just don't care. Like, I tell them about astronomy and galaxies. Not that I'm an armchair, hobbyist. And they don't care. I do care. What did Mars look like 4 billion years ago? I imagine our solar system looked a lot different then too. Asteroids everywhere, different things going on. But let's look at Mars. What did it look like?
Absolutely. And we don't even really know what Earth looked like 4 billion years ago. So it's fun to look at a planet that has rocks that are 4 billion years old still preserved on its surface. It's kind of hard to find that in the solar system. Right. So there was a lot more evidence of flowing liquid water forming different types of geologic features like river valley networks. I say river, we call them valley networks, but they look a lot like rivers do on Earth. And deltas that flow into lakes, and features like that indicate there was this abundant source of surface water.
How was the fishing? Any good? I'm asking for my dad.
Don't know if there was any fish, but the planetary community has argued over how much water there used to be, and how wet the climate was. And so that was sort of the focus of the study, is trying to get more data to constrain that.
And you've used computer modeling software to kind of recreate these Martian landscapes. Walk us through how that all works.
Yeah, sure. So basically, this computer software was developed at University of Colorado Boulder, which is where I did my PhD, which is where this work took place. And it's a program called Land Lab. And basically, we're putting a grid over the surface, and we are using basic physics to just model how that surface changes over time. And so in this study, we modeled about 600,000 years of flowing water, and we did different types of water applied to the surface, whether it's like a glacier or uniformly distributed from some form of precipitation like snow or sleet or rain. And then we basically skip through time, a few thousand years at a time, and we see how the surface erodes.
And what you found with certain input conditions, it matches what Mars looks like today.
Exactly. So we also did a study of basically, since we're trying to figure out what the origin of this water is, I focused on these valley networks and traced all the way back up to where they originate from and looked at the different elevations they came from. And our findings is that the valleys originate over this really wide band of elevations from positive 3,600 meters all the way down to negative 1,800 meters. So it's hard for me to understand how that could be replicated by like maybe a glacier or some other source, which is why we came to the conclusion in this work that there was likely some form of precipitation spreading the water evenly over that huge range of elevations. But, fundamentally, this is a data set that we're inviting the community to now try to add on to. And so what we want to see next is climate modelers come in and try to see if they can simulate these conditions.
Yeah, like if I was a Martian 3.5 billion years ago, what would the weather report be? Like chance of light snow in so-and-so crater? Let's get back to that, though. The precipitation, rainfall, snowfall. Do these challenge the idea that Mars was always frozen and kind of dry?
Yeah, so it's hard for us to know what the climate was 4 billion years ago, but I think with this study, what we're seeing is there very likely was some amount of time, and that's a significant amount of time, on the order of 1 million years, of precipitation happening over this really wide range around the equator of Mars. And previous to that, what we thought might be happening is that occasional impact events or maybe volcanic eruptions would add some heat and then maybe locally melt some ice and cause the erosion that we see. But I think this data set is challenging that belief a little bit.
Well, what could have kept Mars warm enough in a young solar system with a young, faint sun to allow for rainfall and snowfall and the water to become liquid?
That is a fantastic question that I would love to know the answer to.
I was once at a company-wide event at a company where we were having a bad quarter, and somebody asked the CEO a question about the bad quarter, and he answered it by saying, "That is an amazing question," and then he proceeded to not answer it at all. Is that what's about to happen?
Maybe. We really need to do more work, and I really look forward to climate modeling that's going to happen after this. Really what I view that study is contributing is this data set that other people can then go and try to replicate with additional models. I think that the picture is really complicated, and it's not as simple as so in this paper, I modeled 2 what we call end member scenarios, a fully dry ice cap system, and then a precipitation all over the place. And really something in between or some more complicated combination of things is what really happened. And so I really look forward to people discussing how the climate could have sustained this heat.
I know you're a planetary scientist and you're not in the business of making claims without evidence, but are there leading theories on how it could have rained?
Yeah. So there's a combination of theories. Basically, the original composition of Mars' atmosphere is under study and it's unknown. I'm not the expert on what the leading theory is at this moment. What I do want to mention is that we have this rover driving around on Mars that I'm also working on part-time, and it's collecting samples. And if we got those samples back, some of those samples we think are from this time period. And that would be another really cool way to try to get some data on exactly what the composition of Mars was at that time.
How can looking at an ancient Mars and rivers on it help us better understand an ancient Earth?
Right. So this is fundamentally a global climate change that we're looking at, right? Because really ancient Mars, 4.1 to 3.7 billion years ago, has many of these features all over the equator. But then once you get younger than that, we don't see as many of these water-formed features. And so what happened? Like, what was the climate event that occurred that lost its water? I think that's really interesting and important to study, and I think it will help us understand Earth. The other part of this is that, as I sort of mentioned at the beginning, Earth doesn't have a lot of preserved rocks from this time period, from the beginning of the solar system, because we have this fantastic recycling mechanism called tectonics, where we sort of recycle a lot of our older material. So this is one of the only places, nearby places at least, that you can look and see the beginnings of a planet's formation.
What's next in the study of Mars, perhaps exploration of it or other planets in our solar system?
Yeah, I'm really excited for what's coming next. So, with the advances in technology, we can really push a lot of these studies farther out into the solar system than we've been looking at before. And one of the things people might not realize is that our solar system is incredibly diverse. So, we were talking about Mars, and that's really interesting. But there's all kinds of other things that challenge our beliefs out farther in the solar system. And it'll be really exciting as technology continues to advance to see what we're able to find.
All these worlds are yours except Europa. Attempt no landing there. That's Jupiter's moon. Well, thanks for doing the interview. Sounds really exciting. It's really cool how computer modeling is telling us what an ancient Mars could have looked like. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Amanda Steckel is a planetary scientist at the California Institute of Technology. As ever, that's the show. Thanks for tuning into it. We'll be back tomorrow night. Don't forget to check out our podcast where you can listen to parts of the show again or catch any parts you missed. Go to www.lastshow.pizza. That's lastshow.pizza, not .com. And there you can find out more info about our podcast and subscribe. In conclusion, here's a deep question that's often asked by my kitty cat Tomato. Where's the fish? And so with that, may the fish be with you in all your days. I'm David Cooper. This was The Last Show.